Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here is to talk about your contracts, but then this right here, activity right here is going to be talking about Love Stars. And if anybody wanted to know what exactly is Love Stars, I put this together right here using InDesign as well as printing it out. And you have right here is for Planet Earth right here. And the way I went put this contract together, that I went and mentioned right here, about talk about problems, if it's technical problems or technical issues, and I know that if there's going to be any source of agreement or anything about your contracts as to where that if you're going to be running into any source of technical problems, then the contract would say something like that. That if there's a problem that comes up, then this is what we are responsible for, and that we are not responsible for. This is what we can do, and we are not responsible for taking care of this situation for anything that comes up. But so if anybody wanted to word it for how we say responsible and thanking us to talk about for Love Stars and. This painting right here, that whenever I was working this in Photoshop, that this is some of the illustration and Photoshop work that I was working on, and whenever I think about this, it's like I also think about it to where I talk about love and comfort. Whenever you're looking at the stars in the night sky and thinking as to where that this right here is supposed to be like maybe something to think about as to where if that's supposed to be me right there in the future, and along with for anybody that you could meet in the near future also, and thinking as to where that for what we think what love is, and if anybody warns us toward what does love have anything to do with the career, really? Is love going to come first, or is a career going to come first? But talk about for Love Stars, and if we're talking about year 2030 right here, and most like I say, most contracts would usually be good for about maybe up to 1 to 2 years at the most. But let's just say that with this contract that we think is that when we sign them, that it basically means as to where that we want you to show great progress each and every time, and knowing about who is presented in the meeting. But some of these examples right here that I show right here is talking about love. And this right here, this painting right here, that it will be up on my Facebook page. So if anybody were to want to go ahead and try to go to the Facebook page, and then they would be able to see this right here, talk about familiar faces. So if you're like wanting to word it with anything about what you call problems, and whenever we think about this, is that whenever we talk about Love Stars, that whenever I look at these paintings, that a lot of times it's going to remind me to the point to where that there's that there's support, that there's love and support, that you are not alone whenever problems come up. And talk about for problems, and I know that with me though, I'm quite a bit used to the problems, to where it seems like to where that those problems are going to be there in order to be able to fix them. It just seems like that I got to work harder just to fix them. But let's just say there is a point to where that somebody else is going to be offered to help, and sometimes, and I know anybody that may ask as to where that why is it that you don't ask for assistance, but like with me though, that back whenever I used to take those exams, those tests and exams, that it's like that whenever you had a question about something, and sometimes that you would not speak up right away, and people were like warned to where well, how come you didn't speak up about it? But you have right here for problems, and problems you fixed, and the way I think about it, that whenever I look at this painting right here, like talk about for like this right here for for 2021, I got it here for Love Stars for 2021 right here. So we're talking about this was supposed to be like 5 years into the this was supposed to be like about 4 years, 3-4 years, I guess say it would be like 4 years into the future. And I keep thinking too that by the time you're 4 years older, and then knowing that you're going to be meeting somebody, and just thinking about that they can maybe tell you that it's not really a contract, but it's a form actually that you were working on about 3 years earlier, that based on your work in progress. So if anybody were to ask and just kind of wonder to where how the story goes together, to where that anything that we do, that later on, that in the near future, that you come up to those moments to where that situations that come up to where you meet somebody and maybe problem was fixed and then you're trying to figure out, okay, well, who fixed the problem? So yeah, that whenever situations wind up working out, and then it goes by saying this toward that okay, for anything about okay, well, how did it work out, or that how did it get fixed? So whenever we think about this right here, and I have right here the way I drew this painting right here is to show is to where the couples were to be what you call touching each other's ears. It's like that the way I painted this right here, I thought that kind of looked kind of cute looking to where that whenever couples, if it's gonna be a boy and a girl, man and a woman, whenever they're gonna be looking at the stars in the night sky, that they're gonna be leaned up against one another, hugging each other, and then touching each other, by the between right and left ear, touching each other, and just thinking as toward it. I kind of painted that as toward it, knowing that for who else that could be listening, and then they're listening to you and concerned, and then they care about you for what's going on, and so it seems like that. Whenever we think about this, is toward if anybody that's going to think that whenever you're going to be filling out and being tested, and especially if it's going to be a contract, though, that it's basically like promises, and as well as problems. And so if imagination is power. So I went ahead and if anybody were to say, you go ahead and explain a little bit more of this right here. But this right here, I drew the hearts right there. It's on my Facebook page, so if anybody were wanted to it, go to Facebook and you'll be able to find this. And yeah, that I don't have it on the Curios site, but more likely I'll probably say you're looking at getting on it, but it's still that's supposed to be what you call the future of knowing anybody that you may meet in the community, that understanding about love. And so if we're talking about if I were to be meeting somebody by the name of Jennifer Rice or something like that, that if anybody say that you have if you maybe give some maybe you could give an example of a name or something like that, and then just thinking as to where if you spelt it right, but then just thinking that you had these are some examples. I guess anybody that may say that whenever you whenever you're especially if you're going to be doing something for somebody or something like that, if you're trying to make a point of the matter, and then thinking as to where not everything's all accurate, not everything's all correct. But let's just say that if this is supposed to be like an example right here of like a meeting room, and I know if anybody will want to, where if you're going to maybe be meeting somebody maybe on Skype or something like that, that you're going to be connecting with them, over the conference call or something like that, and it would display on like a computer screen monitor or something like this right here, Love Stars. And I could probably think of a number of other examples too, but with Love Stars, that this is an idea actually that comes about is to where that after I graduate, and then whenever I take on a new career so far as my designing work, and then it would be like talk about is that just the way how I painted this right here, that I kept thinking about, well, use the imagination first before it becomes reality. And how many of us are going to maybe think that anything that you were talking about maybe nearly 3 years before, 3 years back in a day, and then let's just say 3 years later, and then that imagination becomes reality. And from this, for what I'm talking about, maybe within the next, within the next 15, I guess 2030 would be within about, the next, 18 years, something like that. Like maybe, something like that. 15 years if I count that right. But about let's say about 11 years altogether. So I'll just say about 11 years. But this right here is for 2021. So let's just say it's 4 years. So if anybody were warned toward it, about what year is it? But what year is it? For what's all being arranged? But still, it seems like to be all kind of like out of the question about whatever answers that come up to where that talk about for love stars is to where that if you're going to maybe have a number of people that are, get interested in what you're doing, and they think about as to where for what the contract says. And like, yeah, the contract says basically is to where any problems I know about the support of the team. And whenever you join the team, it seems like a lot of times that, just think that whenever you start a job that you may feel a little bit uncomfortable just knowing about what the agreement was, and whenever you sign a contract, it seems like that, you gotta go by somebody's rules and somebody's boundaries, and you gotta do what I say. I'm the manager, but talk about for love stars, and how many of us are gonna maybe think that should love be should anything about love, and how many of us are going to maybe think that if you're going to be going through a number of difficulties, and even though if you're going to be having your fights and your arguments about stuff, but sometimes though it seems like that we may not see love each and every time, maybe due to the fact because of all the stress and all the tension that's going on. But let's just say that with love stars right here, that this right here is supposed to be an example right here of me along with one of my future, if it's going to be a future girlfriend or one of my future co-workers, somebody that I'm real close to, looking at the night sky right here. And I think that it came out, pretty cute looking actually. And while I was working on this, I thought about just, labeling it love stars, because whenever I was working on this, I was also thinking about is that maybe a number of things about the relationship that maybe that you didn't quite understand during the time is supposed to be set for the future, next 4 or 5 years from now, that this other person in interest that maybe finds out that a few things that they missed, maybe from earlier in the years, maybe later in the years, a few things that they missed also. And how do we handle that to where that a number of things that goes on within time, and if we're talking about a number of things that we have missed from over the years that we were not really aware of, and sometimes it seems like that whenever how we feel like whenever we miss something, I guess that there's a difference between what we missed and then what we discovered. Whenever we discover something, I guess it basically means that we find it, right? Whenever we discover something, that we find it. But whenever we miss something, that basically means is to where that, you just, you didn't look for it, you didn't find it, or that something that just, what you call slipped the mind, or, something like that, for, if anybody wants us to where that, how do we describe, for what we missed, and for what we were not aware of, and it kind of puts you kind of like if you want to call it like off track, and then especially if you're taking notes of something, and then somebody starts talking to you about something that you're not quite aware of also, maybe changing a policy or something, but still but talk about for love stars that we've seen a few of these already, but I want to go ahead and show some of these examples of some of these artworks right here, like a little gallery right here of some of the artworks. And if anybody were to say, that put them up on Portfolio as well, later on. I know I got them up on Portfolio, but just not on Kuros, but where you can order, you'll buy the prints, but this one right here, I know it's not, and then I know this one right here would be, and but talk about for problems and fixing though, and how many of us are going to maybe think that problems, and half the time that problems that do wind up coming up, and who's responsible for fixing them. And let's just say if you've had a problem for a long time, so long to where you feel like to where that for whoever that cares about it, and for whoever that's of concern. And we may think that maybe a therapist or maybe a doctor would say that we're concerned about how you're doing so far as health wise, and as well as for how your education sources are going. And so there's maybe a number of ways of how we can describe love stars. And I don't know, I'm like, if anybody will warrant to where that this is supposed to be set for the future, and if anybody that may warrant to where, what you talking about, it's supposed to be set for the future. So this right here would be example right here of like I don't know if we call it abstract, like a theme right here, to we have right here is me and looking at the night sky. And So if anybody were warned to where that, yeah, if you like looking at space, or if you like looking at the sky, or maybe whenever you do meet this person, I have not done very much artistic details about being at the coffee shop, or maybe dessert night out or something like that. If anybody say, if you meet anybody special, then won't you paint a picture of you with this other person, maybe enjoying maybe an ice cream, or maybe going out to lunch somewhere, and you start reading a book. Yeah, draw you and this other person reading a book or something. But really, I mainly did this right here, mainly talking about the moon, and then of course about the eclipse also, and as well as a few other things also. If anybody wants, is that a lot of things that you do want to see later on, if it's going to be about the stars, and I know that whenever I do look at the moon, a lot of times that it's going to remind me a lot of times about the number of accomplishments, and the accomplishments I'm talking about will be is to where that a number of things that you've been wanting to try to succeed in, and a number of things you've been trying to work on, and we may think that signing a contract should not be that difficult, or maybe coming up to an agreement, or trying to think as to where that this person, people who are introduced to what you do, and who do wind up hiring you on a job later on in time, that they're going to probably be asking you quite a few questions, and one of those maybe about is to where that during that time that there was a problem, but then that problem got fixed. So let's just say that this right here, that I'll go ahead and use right here as the pen, that this right here would be example right here, like this right here was supposed to be for the future right here, that for the future that this person that I may meet in particular, if it's going to be this person I'm close to, the person that's would be willing to listen to me and listen to for what her and I had to talk about, or maybe if it's a team of guys or team of gals, and they start asking me too. But this right here that I supposed to be love and comfort right here, but let's just say that if I had problems with what I was trying to learn, especially while I was in classes, but then the gal, she got through the courses at hardly any problems at all. So how do we handle that to where that with most of the work that we do, when we run into problems, that if we run into quite a few of the problems that we feel as to where that just have to do it another time, or if you're just not even going to worry about it. But still, that there are some situations that do come up too, to where that we just don't really want to bother with them either. But let's just say that with the problems fixed, and there are some problems that maybe they can be fixed, that maybe that they're just going to they're just going to get fixed by their own time. And knowing about, for anybody that may want to where that for knowing about for between having a heart broken or anything like that, and you're like wanting to where talk about with love, that I don't think if anybody were asked as to where that if you really believe that the love and the relationship should have to break up at any point at all, just because of problems and situations that maybe that you don't want to have to deal with. And so that's just a thing. If anybody were to ask that question, to where that with any source of a contract agreement, whenever you start a job, that you may mention on a job application, to where that I am not the person with no problems at all, so don't expect a lot out of what I do. And they may say that, well, you know what? If you think that you got problems, well, so do we. They may not all be fixed, but still, that knowing about what you call is the trusted relationship here, to where whenever you join a team, we expect we ask for at least for you to do the best you can and to show the best of your performance. And I know that let's just say the situation goes by is to where that you're going to maybe meet somebody in particular, and maybe they talk to you into taking a job, or they find you and they want to ask you questions, stuff like that. I keep thinking about that a lot of times within the next 4 years from now, that somebody in particular that they are going to recognize you just by the work that you do, and they're going to maybe say that, yeah, that, for the feeling to where the feeling of comfort. And every time I look at this painting, I also keep thinking too, is to where that you're so used to, being, you sometimes you just want to be left alone at some situations that come up. And whenever I look at this right here, and I think it's to where that you thought that you were the only one had to deal with the problems, that you were that you were alone, that you were the only one having to fix the problems. But I'm sure later on in life we can also think about as to where with love stars that there is that moment of time to where that somebody special will explain a little bit of the details about what they know about you and any problems that come up, and just think as to where that that their problems were fixed earlier than your problems, and a few of the problems that would be fixed. But let's just say that if we can also think about too, talk about for love stars, the situation where to come up is to where that how we can show each other love. That maybe not all of the problems are going to be fixed, and maybe not everybody's born to be perfect. And really, that it seems like to where that you do kind of, I feel kind of I feel kind of depressed sometimes, and what you call kind of aggravated and frustrated whenever, because like me, I'm not born to be perfect either. And if anybody were to say that, if you want to be judgmental about stuff and say that, yeah, who's born to be perfect, huh? If you want to raise your hand, who's born to be perfect? But still, that for anything about what you call for how much support and love and guidance that we can give to one another as well. So let's just say that if it's on the contract to where that talk about for love stars basically means is to where that about how much willingness are you able to put into a job, and with that job that the job is going to award you to where that whenever you finally you'll get something worked and get something worked on the process. And I know if anybody were to say that if the job goes by, you thought maybe it was just a flip, if you just had to turn a few pages just to be able to get something going, but maybe not. And nobody's going to really want to mess with it if there's too many problems, if they run into too many difficulties. But then if you discover a solution about how to fix it, then chances are that you're going to have more people where say, well, how'd you do that? How'd you fix that? But anyway, but talking about that with a lot of these jobs and a lot of these contracts, though, that if we're talking about love stars, is to where how are people going to find one another? And you weren't to where how is it that people discover one another? How is it that they find one another? Maybe if a problem that does not come up. So let's just say if there's a problem and solution, and maybe you say that, okay, well, I know how to fix that. All you got to do is just sign in. Or so, yeah, that really, I'm like, how do people meet each other? And so sometimes it seems like if it's from a meeting, from a conference meeting that maybe that you don't remember offhand about, yeah, did you ever meet anybody by the name of Jennifer Rice that was at the meeting? And let's just say that you were talking about the future. You were talking about in 5 years from now that this is what's going to be going on, a new source of technology, and as well as for love stars. That how many of us are going to maybe say that if Love Stars has been very helpful to where that's the title that they gave to their support group, the Love Stars members of the company, and just thinking as to where, okay, Love Stars, really, what does the training have anything to do with love? But, likely weren't to where, really, what does training have anything to do with love? But, really, that there might be a number of ways of how we describe as to where that whenever things gradually work out, that it seems like that, if you just want to kind of look back and just kind of laugh about it and maybe just kind of say that, well, glad it's all working out. But, even if it don't, but still, that it seems like it's just a real interesting mystery about how things work out to where that for you talk about 4 years into the future and thinking as to where, okay, who is this person? Okay, and what do you do? And how do you know? How do you know my name? And that type of source of stuff. And I keep thinking too that whenever you meet people, whenever you see people, that see anybody that whenever you're going out, going around shopping, going somewhere, and people know you by hand, by heart, to where they say that, hey, how's it going? They say like that they're glad to see you, and you're like, how do you know my name? Like, well, it's like if you got a name tag on, they might know a little bit too about how they know you, or they may say that they gone to your Facebook page and they say that we know you very well on Facebook, or maybe on Twitter, or maybe on Instagram, that they know you very well on those social media sites like that. So this right here, that we've seen this before. Talk about digital is only the beginning, and how many of us are going to maybe warrant to where that the type of degree that you can maybe get into, to where that you do stuff like if we're talking about maybe technology or some sort, but let's just say maybe our favorite flavors. How many of us are going to maybe say that you want to go ahead and get a degree, major in a degree where you study about flavors? Whenever flavors between sweet and sour, and maybe sugary, or maybe a tasty, or something like that, between lemon and then orange or something like that, or watermelon. And I'm like, yeah, that what do we call that source of major, to where that you study about the flavors, about maybe the seasoning and the flavors. And I guess that's maybe the bakery, if you want to take any baking lessons, and then you would be able to study about different tastes. But I'm sure most of us would probably maybe know that there's other flavors out there besides chocolate and vanilla, as well as maybe cookie crisp or something like that. How many of us say, if you want to meet somebody one of these days, and they tell you about a flavor that they you tell them that, I made up my own title for a flavor, that I thought of Reese to Know. I'm like, a candy bar called Reese to Know, but if there's a flavor that you come up with, and just thinking as to where that, what does it taste like, and then how many calories does it contain, and as well as for anything that is related to sodium, and as well as energy, and does it contain any vitamin C or vitamin D or vitamin E? So you're like Warren, to where that you think that anything that you think about in your mind, and just think about as to anything maybe that you say that on a contract, that it was originally recorded about a year ago, but then 4 years into the future, that a lot more was added on to there. So let's just say that if you were hired on a job, and then maybe that you only came up with a list of about maybe 4 things that you were going to work on and accomplish, and let's just say after about maybe 2 years, and then they gave you more work to do, is that supposed to be a good sign? And sometimes it seems like with a lot of jobs, that whenever you get hired onto a job, or whenever you start working on something, that you feel that way, to where that it's only, this job is only going on for 6 weeks. It's only going on for 6 or 8 weeks. It's not going on for a very long time. But let's just say that with anything what we call temporary jobs, so that if we're talking about love stars, that really, I'm like, there might be other names of how we feel comfortable talking about it, but whenever we start working on something, that we say that it's only just temporary. It's only temporary. It's not permanent. But still, that it seems like plans can change. But do we call that going beyond the contract? So let's just say that whenever we come up to an agreement, to where that within 6 weeks, that this is what you're going to be working on, and maybe let's just say that it's just temporary. So how many of us are going to say that whenever you start working a job, that's just temporary? It's not really, it's not anything about contracts. And I know that you don't feel comfortable signing contracts, because if they go on for a long period of time, and they say is to where they like you very well, then they're going to keep you. And so it's like this thing about us, to where that with a lot of contracts, that whenever you sign them, not like a greeting card, right? But still, that they're showing each other love and companionship, and talk about for love stars. So this right here is supposed to be an example right here of like somebody, if there's somebody by the name of Jennifer Rice, and I know that I don't think I have it spelt correctly compared to that. Within 4 years from now, if I actually meet somebody that maybe I originally described, and they might say that their name is Jennifer Riccano or something like that. Jennifer Ricola or something like that. Jennifer Ricola. That they might even say that there's a perfume or something like that called by name of brand of Jennifer Ricola or something like that. But anyway, but you're really enough with me talking. But talk about with signatures right here. So if you say that you go to a meeting and then you meet somebody and you sign something and saying that you were present during the meeting, and it goes by saying this to her that maybe if you don't remember the meeting, and sometimes that if anybody say that sometimes it's very frustrating too whenever you can't remember certain moments of time to where that was 4 years ago. Yeah, things have changed, but still that for what it seems like that there's a difference between what you see going on and for really what's happening. But really that if anybody say that why does it seem to be so frustrating from what's going on, and maybe you don't know exactly what's going on, but it seems like that for anything about what's possible, anything possibility, anything that you set for the future, and a lot of people would probably say that, hey, if it comes true, I'm like, if it's all true to where that you had something planned, something arranged, and then you said it within 4 years ahead of time, then maybe people may think that you don't know, you didn't just make it up. You're not a liar. You were telling the truth. People understand now a little bit more what you're talking about. So know about for what's really important, huh? But anyway, you got right there is talk about for familiar faces right there for for imagination is power. And then talking about for people that we meet as well, for love stars. But other than that, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.